It's time to preview training camp for the New York Jets. It's that time of season already, Jan. How's that going? Pretty good? Can't wait?
That
Excited?
that kind of means that fall is around the corner, so that's clearly not a good thing.
Yeah,
Although,
see,
given it's been 90-degree heat and 90-degree humidity last week in New York, it's good to have football back. Although, as you know as well as I do, football never goes out of the public consciousness anyway.
no. And we're all now as fans, we're at that point where we're getting a little bit tired. Like it was great to have the draft experience that we had as fans just a few months ago. Everybody talked about how great the Jets draft was. We talked about how great the Jets draft was. It was a home run of home run proportions, but that doesn't win championships. You have to do it on the field. And so now that the off season's over, which we've seemed to do a pretty good job the last couple of years, it has to be translated on the field now. And I just think everybody's ready. And I'll say this, and I said it the last couple of years. I'm going to say it again. I said this last year when we made our predictions. I'm going to keep saying it every time we talk. The number one, there's a number one goal, if you want to call it, a mission, number one storyline. The number one thing that the Jets have got to take care of is health. That trumps everything. I am sick and tired of the injuries. I don't want to say, and we just can't. We just can't afford another year of injuries because we still don't. I think, especially if it's at the quarterback. I just don't. Maybe we have the depth now that we can get to 6 wins, 7 wins if there's a lot of injuries, but that's not going to satisfy anybody. Everybody's still gonna complain. They're still gonna wonder whether Joe Douglas is doing the right job or not. And I don't want to go through one of those seasons again. I want to know for sure whether this group is ready to do it. And the only way we're gonna find that out is if these guys can stay healthy.
You sound like the fan base of at least 20 other teams who are probably saying the same thing right now. I mean, injuries are part of the NFL. I mean, that unfortunately is part and parcel. The expectation is you're going to lose guys along the way. The only
We got
question is to
decimated.
the only question is as to what level of player do
Yes,
you
we
use?
were
Do you lose a
decimated.
backup or do you lose a starter? I mean, look, it started in training camp last year with Carl Lawson, and then it continued early in the season with Mekhi Becton, and then it continued with Corey Davis,
We
and the
lost
list went.
LaMarcus Joyner in the first
Yep,
day. We lost like half our secondary the first week of the season. You
yep.
know,
Marcus May went out. I mean,
yeah,
it went on
it's
and on and on
terrible.
and on and on.
Yeah.
So, but the goal is you talked about, right? Is having increased depth is supposed to help you survive. Hopefully, injuries may not thrive,
We're going to have
but you should
injuries.
hopefully survive. And this
Yes.
year, you look at the lineup and you think that there is no question better depth, though there's clearly questions as to how good the starters are, which none of us really know right now, considering some of them are in their roles for the first or second year, and there needs to be a lot more equity built up before we can get a sense in terms of what this team is really like.
Well, let's go over to what we're going to talk about here because it's going to be camp starts tomorrow. And we're going to be doing several shows, including, of course, our preseason preview show that's next month. Um, I want to talk a little fantasy. We'll get through that. The camp battles. We'll talk about that quickly. We mentioned the injuries. We'll point to a few players. I got a list of players who definitely need big camps. They're at that point in their careers where it's put up or shut up, and that means you're on the team or you're off. And then also breakout players, a couple of different breakout player A and Group B. Let's start with the camp battles. Fant Becton, and of course that also has a lot to do with health, and also has a lot to do with it's time for somebody to
Excuse me,
break out.
the svelte Mekhi Becton, based upon the pictures we saw today.
Okay, so look, with Becton, look, he's got to stay healthy. It's just no question about it. I mean, and I think that if he were to play the preseason games and he's practicing well and the signs are all there, then I think I would feel optimistic that things are going to be okay. But we still have to get to that point.
Yeah, I look. with Becton, as you said, and it's always been health, right? Year one hurt, year two basically was a completely lost year. Fant stood in very well for him. I don't think the Jets have
Oh,
any
he had his best
issues.
season of his career last year.
Jets have no issues with going into this season with Fant as their starting lineman. Now,
Nope.
if Becton is healthy, he clearly, in my opinion, is the better lineman, or at least has the more upside potential per se of Fant, because you put him, with Vera Tucker, you put him with McCovern, you put him with Tomlinson. It's a little bit different line. So my view on this is, if Becton is healthy and he's playing, he's the starter. What that allows you to do is Fant can be a swing guy who you're going to need,
Well, he's got
and
to start at right tackle.
who's probably better suited for that role than Becton would be in a role like that.
Well,
right?
who would start at right tackle?
Well, it's okay. So wait. So let's say Becton is not ready to start and Fant is starting.
You're talking about left tackle, because Becton, if he's healthy, is going to play.
Right. But let's say, for example, he's not healthy for whatever reason.
And Fant starts at left tackle.
Right. Who are you starting at right tackle?
And that's what we talked about during the draft. Do they feel Chuma Edoga is capable of holding the fort at right tackle? I cannot believe Max Mitchell is. So it has to be that they believe Chuma Edoga, because there's no one else on the team. So it has to be that they have faith Chuma Edoga could hold down the fort.
He better, because that may be, if something, put it this way, if Becton's not ready, then they may start exploring the trade market or the waiver wire to see if they can grab somebody.
There are still
which is what they've done in the past.
Yeah, there are still veterans out there. Yep. So that could very well be the case. So that we'll keep an eye on that. And by the way, if Becton is healthy and starts at left tackle on day one, then he falls into the category of, well, now that you're healthy, good. That's one. Number two, now you have to go out there and play a whole season and do it pretty well. We don't have to ask you to be a superstar for the first year, but just you have to play a good, solid 16, 15 game season, 17 game season at left tackle. Okay. And by the way, I'm interested in seeing how some of the other guys develop too. You know, the Grant Hermans and the Parker Fergusons and some of those young guys that they have on the team. We'll see whether or not they've developed enough that they can become key role players on the offensive line. Because we need that. Because right now it's the same Dan Feeney's and Connor McDermott's, and now they have Nate Herberg. So it's nothing. Edoga and Mitchell are the only young guys that you look at that you go, okay, is there any promise there with those guys? Tight end. And now, wow, what a change. No more Griffins and who's the dude that I couldn't stand? Tomlinson?
That's a long list.
Is that Tomlinson?
Eric Tomlinson was one of your favorites. Yes,
thank God. So thank goodness the trash is gone, and now we have not only Conklin but Azuma and Ruckert. So
eventually Ruckert, who's kind of a little banged up right now.
So the question is it going to be Wesco? Do they keep Bowden? I think it might be Wesco against Bowden at fullback. I actually think Wesco is going to make the team. I thought Bowden makes the team. But Yeboah, does Yeboah have a chance to stick on the team as well?
I'm viewing Yeboah as more of a practice squad guy if he makes it through waivers. I think also they're going to keep Wesco just given the blocking ability he has.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I think he fits the offense a little bit better. I do think you're also going to see. I mean, there are, let's say, on paper there are lots of weapons. You still could see some two tight end sets with Conklin and with Uzoma in the lineup at the same time. I think LaFleur is going to try to get a little creative this year, which he can do, hopefully, based upon the offensive talent that exists there.
Okay, and at wide receiver, and this would also kind of open up our discussion too with fantasy, but with wide receiver, I'm telling you right now, this is really. If I'm projecting fantasy at wide receiver for the Jets, I'm going Elijah Moore, 1, Corey Davis, 2, and Garrett Wilson, 3. I do not believe Garrett Wilson. I'll be honest with you. I think Garrett Wilson's stats, I wouldn't be surprised if they were a little bit better than Braxton Berrios. I think he's going to do what most rookie receivers do. I think it's going to be a little bit of a struggle unless there's injuries. I think that you've got two guys that are especially Davis, that have a lot more experience. And I think they're going to have the opportunity at um, at least starting this season, the opportunity to have a leg up on Garrett Wilson. So that's my take. I think that he's going to end up being a fantastic receiver. But people kind of get a little crazy sometimes when it comes to young players. They tend to think that just because you're a top draft pick, that all of a sudden you're going to become, a top player right away. And I just don't think Garrett Wilson is going to just break out and become a superstar in his first year. So would you agree or disagree with my order?
So it's hard to argue with Moore, number one. I mean, look, he's got the year experience. We saw what he can do when he was healthy last year. He was most certainly a difference maker. The problem with Corey Davis is from a health perspective, right? Last year,
just so let's say he stays healthy, sure.
A lost year, right? So I don't disagree with you that he may start the year as the number 2 in terms of pecking order.
Fantasy.
So I'm saying I could see early in the year he'd be the number 2 from a fantasy perspective, right? But I do think as the year goes on, if Wilson proves capable, I would think that the pecking order between the two, that if you were going to make a selection as a jet wide receiver, and again, I don't know how many teams are taking jet wide receivers unless you're in a deeper league anyway. I would think that Wilson may end up surpassing Davis as your second most favorite option from a fantasy perspective at the wide receiver spot.
And I'm going to be shocked if that's the case.
Okay.
Because
look, Davis looked good last year.
No, really, that means Corey Davis is not that. It's just an average receiver.
You don't draft a kid at 10 overall without the expectations that he's going to be take. He's going to blossom.
1.
Well, but this way,
I'm not saying he's not going to be a very good player, but again, year 1.
What are your expectations for this year?
Again, like I said, I think Garrett Wilson. What do you mean, my expectations for the team or the player?
Team.
Are you viewing it a year? Once you get into December, you're battling for a playoff spot.
So again, if that's your mindset, then your utilization of the player may differ based upon what you consider your year is going to be.
Absolutely. If this was last year's team, then yeah, Garrett Wilson probably gets a ton more playing time and his stats may be better and all that. But if you're fighting for a playoff berth and Corey Davis is healthy, look, I think Corey Davis is going to be neck and neck with Elijah for number 1. I just think Elijah is that much more explosive.
Mm-hmm.
That explosiveness will open up some more opportunity for more yards and touchdowns, fantasy-wise.
I think LaFleur is going to use him a little bit like Debo.
Something like that, yes. I agree. I think that's what they're going to try to do, and that's why he's going to get some more touches and more explosive opportunities. But look, again, it's all about staying healthy. Okay, so what about tight end? I definitely have Conklin over Yeboah. Fantasy-wise.
Yeboah or Uzoma?
Uzoma, excuse me.
Okay. Yeah, I would say from an upside perspective, Conklin has it. I think Uzoma is a little bit better of a blocker, but I think Conklin is a better offensive weapon in terms of releasing into patterns, which is why I think you could see some 2 tight end sets where you have Conklin as the extra Uzoma is the extra guy blocking and Conklin going out into the pattern.
2 of the players that are on they need big camps are skill position players, Denzel Mims and LaMichael Pirine. I do not believe Pirine is going to make the team unless he absolutely has an unbelievable camp. And if he does, then that probably kicks Ty Johnson off the team or Tevin Coleman. I think they probably side with Coleman because he's a veteran. But I just don't think Pirine's going to make the team that's out of camp this year.
Well, if he doesn't, that makes that 2020 draft look awfully crappy.
Yeah.
Or even crappier.
Whatever. As long as they win this year. And what about Mims?
Look, we have to take he's in the best shape he's ever been with a grain of salt, right? It's a grain of salt, right? Look, I think we all thought that Mims last year might take a step forward, and he didn't, or is not as much of a step forward as I thought he would.
Well, he had all those issues, the health issues.
But at least he put himself back into the good graces of the organization.
Yes.
Where I think he comes in with a relatively clean slate as opposed to having a black mark against him, which I do think is going to make a difference.
Yeah, because look, this is the deal, is that he has now put himself in that position that If he now just goes out there and stays healthy and has a really good camp, then it's going to be so good for this franchise that all of a sudden now they have 5 wide receivers with ability. So that's how big a camp this could be for Mims and the Jets team to have someone like Denzel Mims actually break out finally. But
Are
first
you
and foremost, you got to stay healthy.
are you predicting open backfield 5 wide at times? Is that what you're
No, I'm
predicting
not.
over here? Okay.
No. And that running back, so it's definitely Brees Hall is on
Yeah.
top in fantasy, and he's going to be the number one guy.
Which
He's
which
probably
which
going to
kills
get it.
which kills me as a guy who had Michael Carter last year at an auction league at a cheap price. So trust me, I'm not happy about that.
He's probably going to, but I think that he'll get about 5 to 7 more touches, something like that. Not going to be an overwhelming
Wait,
amount.
5 to 7 per game you're talking?
Yeah,
That's still 100 a year.
sure.
I mean, look,
But I'm
Carter
not
showed
saying he's getting
look,
25 touches to Carter's 10.
look, Carter was never really the bell cow back for the most
Sure.
part because they rotated him in with guys,
Hmm.
but he definitely showed that he had explosive talent last
Yeah,
year when he was used.
absolutely. Absolutely. If anything, look, this is not going to be, and it better not be San Francisco. So this should be Hall and Carter. They get 90% of the snaps, and the rest go to Ty Johnson, Coleman, whoever wins the third string
Yeah,
job. That's it.
I would think so.
That better be the case.
Yep.
Because San Francisco, they're going to more than likely, go with like 25, 25, 25, 25. I don't want that crap. And I don't think that's going to happen. Okay.
Well, it worked for them when they made a run to the Super Bowl. So
yeah, but they also had explosive players.
I'm not arguing with you, but
yeah.
I'm saying that
But we don't have that
worked.
talent. We don't have those guys.
Correct.
Yeah. Ty Johnson and Tevin Coleman are not that tight. Okay. Place kickers. I didn't even know we were going to have competition when they signed Greg Zuerlein, but they went ahead and signed Pinheiro like the next day, and there's competition. I like it. I like the competition, and the only thing I'm afraid of is, Pinheiro did a good job with it. He didn't miss a kick last year. And Zuerlein's got more of the background, and now he's supposedly more healthy. He was banged up the last couple of years. I'm just afraid of, like, whoever we go with, the guy who we cut's going to do better. Oh, come on.
Sounds like a typical Jet fan, right?
Yeah, come on. Anyway, what do you think? Who wins the job?
Zuerlein.
You think it'd be close?
I think Zuerlein has the bigger leg in terms of from a distance perspective, which I think will sway them, and it could make a difference on kickoffs also. Look, he's got to be healthy.
Yes.
Pinheiro obviously has the I don't know if he has the upper hand only because he was in the system last year, so they know what he can do, and Zuerlein has to prove himself after a couple of off years. I do think I think it'll be a battle. I think it'll be one of those that goes down to the last week.
Yeah, I do too. And let's keep in mind, Pinheiro's leg strength is still pretty decent, about 50, 51, 52. He just doesn't have the 55, 58 Zuerlein range.
Correct.
And the other thing, too, Zuerlein has been around the same coaches his entire career. This is the first time he's having a special teams coach that is different. So that could come into play.
But it's a good coach, so.
It is, yes. And that could be a help. Could jumpstart the last couple of years of his career. Okay, on defense. Healthy, like we said, not only Carl Lawson, but LaMarcus Joyner. Those two guys have got to stay healthy. And you know who also needs to stay healthy and also have a breakout season, not to be a star, but a breakout season to justify, going back to your 2020 draft, to justify his draft, Ashton Davis. Ashton Davis, because he never stays healthy. So he has to stay healthy. He has to play 15 to 17 games, and he has to play like he is a good starter, a good contributor. And he needs to start also, which that means he has to be a playmaker. That's why they got him, especially with Marcus May gone. Time for Ashton Davis to step up.
See, I expected you to go with a different name there.
In the secondary?
No, overall. When you started talking about guys who need to have big years and justify, I thought the next line was justify his contract. And I had a feeling you were going with your other favorite person who you were all over last year towards the end of last year.
CJ?
John Franklin Myers is the guy you went off on all
Oh,
the
John
time after
Franklin
he signed
Myers,
that
yes.
contract. That's all
But
I
that's
heard last
okay.
year. Got to
I'm
justify the
confident, John.
contracts. Got to
I'm
justify the
confident.
contracts.
The
Look,
difference
Ashley
last year's
Davis.
team is that there were tons of injuries on the defensive front. He was forced to play different position. And yeah, I definitely wrote him, no question, because it was just a fact. But I'm giving him a break
You have
because
him.
there were injuries.
You have him and Williams inside now. You have Lawson and Mr. Jermaine on the outside, right? You would think that the rush should be eons better than it
Oh
was
yeah,
last season, which
especially
then
when you throw in Michael Clemens, Bryce Huff,
yep,
Jacob Martin off the bench.
right. So
So
that has a trickle down impact to the linebackers in the secondary, right?
yep,
So obviously it's a symbiotic relationship between them. This is where you're hoping that the guys who struggled last year, where you talk about it, Ashton Davis, you talk about the cornerbacks and the safeties that got experience last year, that came out of nowhere to a certain extent and ended up being starters. You would hope that they benefited from the
yeah,
playing time they had
yeah.
last year, but you also hope that that a CJ Mosley has a big season this year also,
Oh, he better.
right?
He better.
He talks about this team should make the playoffs. Well, guess what?
Talk. Ugh. I don't want to hear
You
it.
need again.
Yeah.
He had a good year last year. I'm looking for him
Statistically
to.
speaking,
I'm looking to him to have a Buffalo Bills type impact. Is what I'm looking
yes.
for.
Because the difference between having like 150 tackles and yet having being a playmaker are two completely different
Yep,
things. He
agreed.
was not a playmaker last year. Tackles, I could care less about. They didn't pay him this much as to tackle. The dude from Atlanta had 190 tackles. It doesn't matter. We want a guy that we saw in the Buffalo game week 1 in his first game. That's the guy that we want.
Yep.
So, by the way, and Quinnen Williams as well. We've talked about this. If everybody's healthy, Quinnen Williams, no more excuses. You need to show us now that you have star potential.
You want to get paid like one, right? This is your opportunity. You got Williams and Williams, right? I'm expecting Quincy to have a good year also with that kind of rush in front of him, and Mosley playing opposite him again also.
And that those other two linebackers, the rookies last year, got to get them healthy. We
Yep.
got to see what they had because they talked highly about them. It's time to see Nezrel Dean and Sherwood get on the playing field, and that's important too.
Correct.
So,
Yep.
But what about Davis?
Look, I mean, they viewed him. I don't know if I'd call him a unicorn, but a guy
Yeah.
who can be a back seven, who can move up, who can play a little linebacker, play a little strong safety, play a little cornerback. They viewed him as a guy that can move him all over like on a chessboard. And unfortunately, the first couple of years we haven't seen that. The first year was basically a wash because of the injury. Right, last year, bits and pieces of signs, but this is the year with given another year in the system, another year fully healthy, and better talent up in front of him. That should hopefully impact him in terms of what you see him perform on the field.
Yeah, because if anything happens to LaMarcus Joyner again, Davis is the next guy in line,
Yep.
and he has got to step up if we need him. And then also, by the way, on the defensive line, the player that we did not talk about that fits in the same role as LaMichael Pirine and Denzel Mims. And yes, he was in the same draft. I'm going through all these 2020 guys. Jabari Zuniga. He's still on the team.
He's fighting a significant uphill battle to make this team.
And that's the way it should be. Because if he's talented enough,
you can show you want, well, as long as you make the playoffs, you don't want an entire draft to basically go by the wayside.
No, but yeah.
Doesn't look good. Doesn't look good.
Bryce Huff wasn't drafted, and he's ahead of Zuniga on the depth chart.
I know. That's my point, right? It doesn't look good on your grading if your entire first draft basically proved to be a dud. I mean, James Morgan was a waste of a pick.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Speaking of the 20 draft, another guy who I have written down. It's time for the breakout. Braden Mann. Because he was good year. He was headed that way last year before the injury.
Right. I still think he had an overall pretty solid season last year.
Was.
He definitely improved substantively from the year before.
But now he needs to be statistically a top 10 in the league punter.
Yep.
We don't need him to be number 1, top 5. Just be a top 10 punter. Because when you draft someone, as a punter, that's what you expect. So, and he had the talent in college. So, Braden Mann definitely needs to step it up as well. Overall, though, again, it's about more than anything these guys staying healthy. You know, we're gonna have more than enough time to talk about the entire roster because guys that are still fighting for spots and that are young guys like on defense, like Jonathan Marshall. Hey, does Rashed Hamaclar, does he have anything? What about veteran Vinny Curry? I thought he was done, and now he's there again. So what does that mean? Does he somehow surprise everybody in camp and earn a roster spot? And if he does, well, I mean, where are these spots going? Because there's so many players on the defensive line now. I think the only way that they fit a certain amount of guys on the defensive line is because they're probably not gonna have a big number of linebackers on the team. They might only keep 5 linebackers. Possible. So
it could be very possible.
We'll keep an eye on that again. And finally, lastly, before we call it a show, we haven't mentioned his name yet.
Yep, we
Zach
have not.
Wilson. So
it all starts and ends there.
Yep.
It's very simple.
How confident are you that Zach Wilson is going to, if he plays the entire season, if he stays healthy, how confident are you that Zach Wilson is going to take that next step? Not a mini step, not a tremendous step, but a significant step nonetheless.
I would have liked to have seen a bit more during OTAs to show me that he had taken more of a step forward.
OTAs.
He was very up and down in camp, very up and down. From what we've heard, he was kind of up and down in some of the stuff they ran on the side and some of the other stuff. So,
all I heard about him in OTAs was about how big he got.
Yeah, but also heard that he was kind of up and down at times. So, I mean, plus all the off-field stuff that we heard about also about him, which we're not going to go into.
I mean, the Post has like a new picture with him with a girl like every other day.
I know. I think he will show growth this year. Is he going to show I'm going to use the term exponential growth that we hope for? I'll tell you this. I will get a better sense first preseason game when I see the first 3 or 4 times he tries to throw the ball into the flat and whether or not he can make that throw with ease, then I'll have a better sense. If he can, then my confidence level will rise. If he struggles again, I'm going to be like, how could you not have spent like all summer or all off season just literally 5-yard out, throw the ball, 5-yard out, throw the ball. 5-yard out.
That's supposed to be like a natural thing. That all comes with timing and confidence.
It's a mental block thing, which he needs to surpass.
Yeah. And I look, even if he
so if you ask me level of confidence, that is an important signifier as to level of confidence.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay because yes, no question. First preseason game, I'm with you. Not that particular pass, but I just need to see the guy that we saw at the end of the season. That's it. And the guy that is going to make, because he was very good the last 4 or 5 games of the season, keeping in mind who he was playing with. So that even makes that's more impressive of how he looked as a rookie late in the season. So I have a lot of confidence. Matter of fact, so much so that I actually think that he should be right up there as the top second-year quarterback in fantasy. I don't think Trey Lance should be ahead of him. I don't think any of those. I think Lawrence might be Mac Jones because he's not going to put up great fantasy numbers.
No.
So I think Lawrence is the only guy that might beat out Wilson.
Well, considering the fact they've completely revamped that coaching staff after the debacle that happened last year.
Which gives an edge to the Jets too.
And also Travis Etienne will be back also, which will help him also.
Yeah,
even though they have James Robinson, but getting Etienne back will help.
I have high expectations for Zach. I really do. I have high expectations for the team. I just want so desperately for them to not get decimated by injury. That's all. I know every team gets hurt. It's a way of life. I just don't want the decimation. That just can't happen again because look, it's you can tell. You don't have those types of drafts and you don't have that type of positive vibes around the organization like they have now out of nowhere. It's happening because you know it's happening. That's why the next step is let's just stay healthy so we can get on the field with all these younger players and mix of some veterans and get it done. And I think this team, if they're relatively healthy, will be battling for a playoff spot at the end of the season. And that's what it's all about. And I think this is going to be a fantastic season for us. I just want to see these guys stay healthy. That's all. So
Let's make it through the preseason healthy because that didn't happen last
that's
year.
the trick. It's training camp, and then it's the first like 2 games of the season. Because that first week, you always get those big injury lists. So we got to make it through training camp and the first week or two. And if we can make it into like week 3 and things are still looking pretty good health wise, then I think we're going to be okay. So,
Knock on wood.
Long way to go.
I
So
agree
far,
with
so
you.
good. We have a clean slate. Nobody's hurt. Nobody's seriously hurt.
Correct.
But next time we talk, which will be in the next couple of weeks, we'll see. We'll see how it's going. So, Jan, appreciate it. You going to get down to camp at all?
I don't know. We'll see.
How far is it from you?
It's Jersey now, so it's a long ride. It's not like not like a short ride.
All right. Well, we'll talk Jets football in the next couple of weeks. I'll have Ryan Dunleavy on from the New York Post. We'll get him on to also get his feeling on what's going on as he's also there covering the team. I'm sure he'll be at camp a few times. So, Jan, appreciate it. We'll talk to you real soon.
Sounds good.
And don't forget, everybody, to subscribe to the channel. Hopefully you like what you see. If you do, please subscribe. That's important for us here as we continue to grow the channel. And by the way, not only that, sharing the videos, because the subscriptions and the sharing of the videos, all that stuff is real important, because the more traffic we get, the better it is. So we can add Jan on in October for hockey coverage all season long. So, which is definitely what I'm hoping for, because the Rangers are very successful, and my team hopefully will be too. But hockey season's a long way off as far as we're concerned. Fact is, we just want everybody to enjoy the videos and subscribe to them as best you can. And we'll see you again on this channel tomorrow when we talk NASCAR, and then Thursday horse racing, and then football also continues with our first college football interview. Tom Kakert, who covers the Iowa Hawkeyes, will preview the Iowa Hawkeyes season on Friday here on Prime Sports Network. For Jan Levine, I'm Greg DePalma. We'll see you next time.